The Soar Rainstorm it's interesting. I will say that my initial impressions were, to be honest, negative, and that's a shame considering that this was a Balisong that I've been hunting for a long time. However, I will say that over time, certain things have changed. First, let's talk the general specs. On Soar's uh, Instagram page, Soar underscore Balisong underscore official says the base version is TC4 titanium handles, 14C28N for the live blade for steel, and the price is estimated 350 to 450. But that is kind of a relatively big difference of like a 25% ish. Weight is 4.13 ounces. I have the tuning fork here, as you can see, and the live blade version apparently is actually a little blade biased, and this version here is the fork. I have not tried just the trainer. There's a trainer blade that looks honestly kind of like a squid, but this is the fork, and the fork is actually pretty damn neutral. So let's also talk about the fact that this is sandwich design. It's got some spacers with some jimping, and I don't know if the blade steel of the fork is the same as the blade steel for the actual live blade. So I saw this and I was blown away by the design. I thought it was such a cool look. It was super unique, and unfortunately, there's not like a ton of surface to hold it. It is a very thin Balisong, and also with how much material is carved away here and how like fat these chamfers are. Like this groove. It's like a diagonal chamfer here. It kind of just doesn't have a lot of surface to hold. If you also look at the side, it thins inward, and so there's just not a ton of surface here. I actually was talking to Remshi, the maker of the Kuno, because we both got our Rainstorm roughly the same day, and we had some interesting thoughts and we were discussing things. I felt that it was very neutral. However, a lot of it was very ass weight. There was a lot of pull at the ends of the handles. He doesn't agree. He feels that it's a pretty evenly distributed. However, his biggest thing that I didn't notice at first is there's zero taper. There is zero taper in the handles. Some Balisongs have very, very, very thin tapers, such as the Slight. Basically, NRB Balisongs have very thin tapers, the Slight and the Ultralight. But most Balisongs actually taper quite a bit. Here is a average taper. It is very standard. You know, it's thinner at the pivots and wider at the ends of the handles. That's the Canto Origin. Here is the Empress that I just got today. It is thinner, and then it widens out. It's very mild sometimes, and sometimes it's, you know, a bit more obvious. Like, here's the Benchmade 67 clone. You can definitely see that there's a taper. The Soar Rainstorm has no taper that I can tell. One thing that he also complained about, Remshi, was that it is pivot barrels and not a sex bolt, which means that you have 4 screws per handle. 1, 2, 3. Nope. Yeah, 4 screws per handle, because there's 2 down here and 2 up here, and then a barrel spacer, or like a barrel pivot, I suppose. And then in here, there's a barrel spacer. Now, barrel spacers with no sex bolts is not that crazy for spacers, but for pivots being only barrels, I personally don't mind. But some people hate it. Remshi was particularly offended by it. And these screws, as you can tell, are pretty proprietary. So while they're T10s, if you strip them, well, good luck finding new ones. The jimping on the surface here, I honestly don't really feel it. It's pretty subtle. And with how much I feel like ass weight, again, these videos are just my opinions. And I have flipped a good number of Balisongs, but, you know, there's definitely some room for interpretation, and, you know, no one really knows what the fuck balance is. Not even makers do. Not even the best flippers seem to. But I feel like this is a neutral Balisong with a lot of ass weight. So ladders on this is interesting because of how much I feel like I'm like how long this pendulum is. The pendulum is, I mean, these are pretty long handles. Again, here's the Canto Origin again for reference. But as you can see, these, like, this is a much, it's a significantly longer Balisong. The blade in of itself is longer from the pivots, and the handles themselves are longer. I just got the Emperor, so I'm not very familiar, but let's do a length comparison. Oh yeah, it's longer still. So not as extreme, but still noticeable. So these are very long, thin handles that don't taper and have a lot of mass at the end relative to how much mass is carved out. I also, if you remember seeing my unboxing video, complained about how these spines were honestly quite uncomfortable. Now, if I have a DE, I want to be able to do chaplains on both sides. I want my choils to be high enough in order to be able to do tricks such as my favorite twirls and chaplains. I feel like having a DE Balisong that is not chaplainable, it's very limited in what you can do. Obviously, people who are really good are able to do still a lot of rollovers. People can do rollovers still on bite sides, if they're careful and they know how to not get themselves cut. But personally, I just find that a DE is not very comfortable. However, this is a trainer, but you can argue that it was designed to be a DE. I actually sanded my spines with like 3K and 5K grit, just the edges in order to make it more comfortable. And I find that it is a lot more comfortable than when I originally first unboxed it. Now, it's not the smoothest Balisong ever on its spine, but it is a lot more comfortable. It fans very nicely, I will say, and rollovers are also interesting because of momentum. Now, as I said before with fans, when I'm coming out of a fan, I feel like the handle swings really intensely, as in like it really wants to go somewhere. So the ends of the handles are really leading this. Now, that said, despite its quirks and despite how, I guess kind of disappointed I was up front, this has started to grow on me. It is a very unique character. There's a lot going on with it, and I got it for a solid price, I will say. It's still, it's still pretty penny. It's not cheap. I would say if something is like only $100, then like for a Balisong, that's like not that much. But like this was definitely more than $100. I'll be honest. I got this for 300, so less than what theoretically someone would be selling it for brand new from the retail. I got it from a friend who got it from someone else who got theirs and didn't want it. And so, shit, I'm sorry. I find that it, I was really scared, but I decided to finally, just go for it. Because I really wanted to try before I buy it, because, well, there's no reviews on this. I think there aren't really there's not a ton of other coverage on this Balisong but me. And so, yeah, this is my thoughts. The fork is very quiet. You don't have to worry about an annoying ring, but it definitely does have, like, it is a tuning fork. I don't know why China makes a lot of tuning fork Balisongs, but it seems that if they are going to make a third blade that is not, a live blade, a standard trainer blade, a lot of times the third blade is a fork, a tuning fork. I just think that's interesting. This happens with Max Ace and I think who made the Serpent Striker V3? I think that's Max Ace. The Sirius V2 had a tuning fork blade, or maybe it was the V1. This is a tuning fork blade. Several other ones. I find that most tuning fork blades, as much as I really wanted one, just weren't really good flippers. It broke my heart. They're very, very handle biased unless you put in a zippy insert on the blade for the Serpent Striker V3. This tuning fork actually does flip really good, and arguably better than the live blade. Not that I flipped the live blade, but if the live blade is blade biased, that's just something, to be aware of. So while it is weird, I wouldn't say it's bad. I just think it's a very odd Balisong, and I've been flipping it a lot, just trying to like figure this out because it's so strange. But there are a few things I wish. I wish, one, that these chamfers were a little softer, like up here. I wish that they had more of a roundness to them, because if they made these Balisongs as thin as they are, it would be kind of nice if they rolled in ways that I wanted to be able to roll. There are just certain edges that are just harder compared to the rest of the Balisong. Like, as you can see, the surfaces are pretty rounded and smooth, and you can have a kind of a curvature on the sides, or I guess in the faces. But just when you hit this angle here, this section here is just not as comfortable as I wanted. If it was really smoothed out, it could feel much better. But personally, honestly, it just, I don't know why there's so much material taken out there. If it was like thicker, if it didn't go inward and, you know, make this section thinner, if it didn't have such kind of rough edges, if it had more surface to grip, I would think that would be much better. I think that the handle designs, while actually, I think the box, well, I don't have it currently with me, it said something about like design for design's sake. You can see it in my unboxing video. And this is definitely a Balisong that was designed as a design in mind and not as much as a flipper. It does flip. It flips pretty decently. However, it is very atypical. This is hardly a competitive flipper. It is not like anything else I've flipped. It's long and has very unique weight distribution. And so if you want one, I highly recommend that you try it, or you go into it knowing this Balisong does not flip like any other Balisong that you have flipped. Maybe you have flipped something like this, but the chances are it's very unlikely. It's just, it's got no taper. And to me, I don't know if that's as big of a deal. I think that the grip would have been nice. There are certain things. It's just kind of interesting, the things that that mattered to Remshi versus the things that mattered to me. You know, it's a very subjective subject or hobby, you know. But I do find that flipping wise, you know, neutral, but a lot of ass weight. Rollovers are doable, but you know, you gotta let the handles lead you where they want to go, because otherwise it'll just fly out of your hand. There's also, just because there's not a lot of surface area, it's really easy for it to slip away from you in a sense. So like, there we go. Like, I have to kind of let it be careful in order to not let it fly out of my hands. Ladders are difficult mostly just because of how little surface area it is, how much momentum you're throwing. As for aerials, I mean, I guess be aware that aerials, in the same way as rollovers, are very momentum based, and so you have to make sure that you have enough of momentum to get this long ass pendulum to go where it wants to go. Sorry, I should go from this way, because if this handle has this weight here, if I remembered correctly from physics class, the only thing that matters on a pendulum that affects the speed of which it moves is the length. This is a long one, and it is very ass heavy, so it is actually more of a pendulum than just, you know, a stick. And so with how this weight wants to move, because of how long it is, it has quite a distance to rotate in order to go places. So just be aware of that. As for, is it worth it? It is interesting. I will say it's interesting. It's not bad, but I know that a lot of you out there, if you were to flip this, you'd fucking hate it. If you like weird shit like me, if you like collecting Balisongs that are very unique and different from each other, you like things that have a lot of character, again, I don't know, if you're really good at rollovers, this might be really fun. It fans really nicely. It is really satisfying. Even that, like, while it pulls me really hard downwards after I'm finishing this fan, it's really satisfying fan. And yeah, I just wish that there was more surface area on the interior, I guess, especially close to the pivots for where you chaplain and twirl. And so yeah, I guess if it was rounder and the like that weird, like this big center chamfer was better in one of several ways, I think this could be super duper cool in the sense that, like, I won't, in my opinion, this has flaws, and despite its flaws, I actually quite like this. It has grown on me, but it takes time, and a lot of people, they go and they go, oh, that's fucking gross, and Yeah, so definitely buyers beware in the sense of she's a weirdo. But if that's your type, anyways, that's my type. Ha ha ha. Check out the unboxing video if you want my initial impressions. Subscribe if you want to see my daily uploads. And like this video, check out the coffee in the description. A little bit goes a long way, helps me cover things like shipping and sandpaper. You know, I'm not really making a buck off of this, but it's a hobby project of mine. I love Balisongs. I love talking about Balisongs. I love covering Balisongs that no one else is talking about. And you want to know about this Balisong that you've seen on Instagram, but you've not really seen anyone flip outside of the actual Instagram or people from China, you've come to me. And now you've learned about the Soar Rainstorm. So possibly, I was really interested in getting a Lucifer down the line before I tried this. I'm not as sure if I want to get a Lucifer now. This one was definitely something that I wanted to get, and I am going to keep this. I also think part of why I am not getting rid of this is because I would have a really hard time selling this without losing a lot of money. So fuck it, I'm keeping this. It's a fun collection item, and it gets to sit on my trainers in the titanium row. Anyways, that's all for now. Happy flipping, and stay hydrated. I'm really thirsty. Oh, also, this is the third cat. He's not normally in this room. He's not really supposed to be here, but